Hello and welcome back to the lecture on budgets and fiscal policy, where now in the final part of the lecture we turn our attention to the role of interest rates.
Until now, we've not really mentioned interest rates, apart from to say that we're assuming they're fixed. And you don't need to be an expert in economics or to have done anything except just listen to the news to realise that interest rates are not fixed. They're deliberately changed as part of government policy, and they move up and down according to all kinds of global and national economic forces. So this assumption is ridiculous. So we now need to drop this assumption and see what happens when they start to change. So it's called relaxing the assumption. So interest rates we're going to call R. Unfortunately, we can't call them I because I is already taken for investment. So interest rates is R. Okay. So now we said they can vary. Want to ask, what are they going to affect? And they can affect all of these things. Investment by private companies, private consumption and demand for money. And what we concentrate on here is the classical, the standard Keynesian formulation. And Keynes talks about the effect of interest through two main routes, through the decisions that private companies make about what to invest, and the decision that all economic actors in the economy make about how much of their wealth do they want to have in the form of money as opposed to alternatives. That's the demand for money, which we'll talk about in a minute. It wasn't so much about the demand for consumption. When Keynes put together his theory, it doesn't make a lot of difference in terms of the theory, but it just makes it more complicated. So we stick to the basic formulation where it's just about changing investment and demand for money. Clearly, when Keynes was writing, they didn't have things like so many personal loans and people buying a whole bunch of stuff on credit cards, which are very sensitive to interest rates. But you can add that in. So we're concentrating on these two. So looking at investments, again, the brackets mean depend on, it's not multiplying. So investment depends on interest rates. And interest rates represent both things of these two. It represents the cost of borrowing money for investment. So if you're a firm, you're thinking, hey, let's build a bit more on this factory here, or let's take on a whole set of new people to work in a call center or in product design. If you do that, you need to borrow some money to do it. If you need to borrow money, then if the interest rate is really high, you're going to think, well, do I really want to do that? Whereas if the interest rate is low, it's more attractive for you to invest. But even if you don't need to borrow, you've got a whole stack of cash and think, hey, look, let me put this cash into a new building or employ some new people. The interest rate still affects you because instead of taking that money you already have and applying it to your business, having to work and do risky stuff to earn money, if the interest rate is really high, you think, hey, let me just stay in bed and not worry about doing some extra work. Instead of investing in my company, I can just put this pile of money into investments and I'll get that interest rate back. Through that high interest rate, I'll get a return instead of having to invest in my business. So high interest rate makes you more reluctant to invest in your business. So higher R means lower I. So that's your golden rule from this. Higher R means lower I. Now we look at the relationship between savings and investments. And these are things that's easy to get confused in your mind. A savings decision is the saving about when not to consume some income that you've got. So any income you've got that you don't consume, that's automatically savings. But it's not necessarily investment. You could just put it under the mattress or in a bank. You're not yourself investing it in productive activity. That decision is a separate decision. But if you remember this equation we're starting with here, remember we have dropped one ludicrous assumption about interest rates staying the same, but we are keeping some other ludicrous assumptions, including that there's no imports and exports for now. So we're starting with this closed economy, as we call it, equation. Now, if investment depends on interest rates, we can rearrange this around. So if you remember your GCSE maths, whatever, you take the C and the G to this side here, and you're left with Y minus C minus G is equal to I, and I depends on R. Now, this left-hand side here is all the income not spent by households or government. So as I say, if you've got a whole bunch of income, the stuff that you decide not to spend is your savings. So at a national level, this is our total national income. This is as a nation what we're choosing to spend, both individually and as a government. So this, the income take away the spending, gives you national savings. Yeah. So national savings is defined as this side here. And the equation shows you that that national savings has got to be equal to investment. Yeah. We can also say that savings itself depends on income, because from here you can see that the more income you get, all things being equal, the more you're going to want to save. So savings, depending on income, is equal to investment, which depends on interest rates. So increasing income puts this thing up, increasing interest rates puts this thing down. So there's some sort of tension or balance going on. That's what I've just said. So because as this changes, it changes what you want to say. As this changes, it changes interest rates. This will only work for some combinations of y and r. So if I keep y the same, then s stays the same. If I then start changing r, that's going to change this one, but not change this one. So it would muck this equation up. So this will only be true for some combinations of y and r. So the next model we're going to look at is the model which looks at these combinations of y and r on a graph like this. So along here we put national income and national output. So along as we go along here, that we're producing more in the economy, we're demanding more, we're spending more, we're getting more income. As we go up this way, interest rates are higher. So where on here does this apply? Is the amount of saving equal to the amount that people want to invest? So it's only some combinations. We can draw those on this map. Now, if we go back to our Keynesian cross, now when we first looked at the Keynesian cross, is ignoring interest rates. Now we can let interest rates change. So let's start from a situation like this, where this is the interest rate, R1. So R1 is the current interest rate. Yeah. Now let's assume that there's going to be a fall in interest rates. So in this new diagram we're introducing, let's say we had here a combination of R1 and Y1. Let's say at this point, we're at equilibrium here, which means, going back to the previous equation, that is a place where S is the same as investment. Savings and investment are equal. We're satisfying this equation. Yeah. So at this point here, we do satisfy the equation. What happens when R falls? So R goes down to here. What's the next point that's going to also satisfy the equation that savings is equal to investment? We have to consider what happens up here. So when R falls, that makes investment cheaper. Private companies will say, hey, let's boost our investment. So when we go from R1 to R2, this is going to increase, which is going to push all of this up. So this goes to here, investment increases, so total expenditure increases. So the equilibrium goes from here to here. So you can see that demand has gone to here. So this point, from this point here, we move to this point here. So you can say that this, the combination of points where investment is equal to saving is going to be on some kind of line coming down like this. As the interest rates fall, investment rises, which increases, and it's investment which increases the total expenditure and therefore total income and output demand. And because this line here shows you all the points, all the combination of R and Y where investment is equal to saving, and it's called the IS line. So the IS curve. It's got a downward slope for that reason. And the reason it's got the downward slope is as you slash R, people want to invest more. So this increases. So Y has to increase to keep this. As you slash R, this increases, which means this needs to increase, which means this needs to increase to keep the balance. So it must be some sort of slope down like this. That's called the IS curve. And because you're on this equilibrium here where Y is also equal to total spending on domestic output, then this line is also thought to show us in the real market for goods and services, where this is the total expenditure on all of goods and services, where all the places where this is equilibrium are these combinations of R and Y. So it's just another way of writing the same thing. So we can think of this as equilibrium in the goods and services market, or where investment and savings are the same. You can use this to show the effects of fiscal stimulus. So in other words, fiscal stimulus means either putting some money directly into the economy by increasing government spending, or decreasing taxes to leave more money in the economy. So again, we can go back to the Keynesian cross like this. There's the initial curve. And now we increase government spending. So again, that pushes up this curve because this one is changing this time. More government money goes in. So we haven't changed the interest rates, just changed government spending. So we've got to here, the same interest rates. So output has increased because of this effect, the Keynesian multiplier to here. And then if you then change R, you'd be going up and down this line, but starting from this position. Yeah. So the horizontal distance is the multiplier times the change in government spending. So that shifts, government spending shifts the IS curve. What would happen if tax increases? That's your question now. So have a look through those possibilities. I won't give you very long because you can pause the video now and think which of these would you go for. I've shown you what happens if government spending increases. If tax increases, what would happen to that IS curve? Okay, think about it. Okay. This is designed for clickers. Well, if tax increases, I haven't got a diagram for it. Well, tax increases has the effect of taking money out of the economy, so it has the opposite effect from a fiscal stimulus. So it would move IS in the other direction towards the left. So the IS moves left. IS moves less because you're taking money out of the economy. That tends to decrease consumption. So increased taxation would decrease C. So this line would move down this way. So you have almost exactly the opposite effect, move back that way. And the distance it moved back this way would be given by the taxation multiplier. So it moves left because of the decrease in consumption, and the amount is the taxation multiplier.
To finish this lecture, we look next at the link between interest rates and the demand for money, which leads us on to the next lecture about monetary policy. But I'm going to save that for the final video because this video has got too long. So for now, thanks for watching.